Welcome to another episode of the Truth We Hide podcast. Today's guest is Kip Brooks. He reached out to me actually wanting to share a story, and you guys know me. I'm very blessed to be able to be in the space to share people's stories, and this one really hit close to home, so I'm really honored to have him on here today as a guest. He is the founder of Brooks Empowerment Academy, and I'm going to have him tell you all about it. So thank you so much, Kip, for being on here today. Tell us everything.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I love the show. By the way, I've checked out, since we first connected, I've checked out several of your episodes. And yeah, I was like, wow, I have really got to shake some nerves off to be able to step in after coming in, some of the, especially like Marshall's episode here recently too. I was like, wow, awesome. It's like, I love what you're doing. So it's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. As far as me, just kind of in a nutshell, I was like any kid, started out all bubbly and happy and curious. But the environment I was in just wasn't set up for a child, especially like me, to really flourish. And like most kids, took everything personal, and it was just a toxic environment. And by the time I was 8 years old, I remember, I was taught to pray every night, like everybody else, like, no, lay me down to sleep and all that. And around the time I was 8 years old, that I would still do my prayers because I want to be a good boy, but it had changed, and the prayers had changed to like, please don't let me wake up. I want out of here. Like, I didn't know at that age, I was still so young and innocent. I didn't know like suicide existed. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know that was an option. I had lost family members, but to other causes, nothing like that. So the idea luckily had never clicked, which is great because there was plenty of things around my household that I could have actually done that with, and parents were never around. They were always at work. So it could have happened. But I say, yeah, luckily I was too young. And by the time I became older, I had a sister who was born around when I was about 7, 8 years old. And I adored her. We had this instant connection. I was always the one who could get her to stop crying and all that. Mm-hmm. So by the time I realized the guy actually had a grandfather who killed himself when I was around 10 or so. So by the time that happened, I had an idea that was an option, and actually knew how to do it then. I was like, I have to stay here to be a shield for her. I was like, I can't allow her to experience what I experienced. And I really believed that if I wasn't here, then everything that I was dealing with was going to get dumped on her. Yeah. Which wasn't right, because it was all on how I was perceiving everything. But luckily, that's how I perceive that being, is because it kept me here. Because I literally protecting her from it, this innocent little infant / going into toddler. That's the only reason I could come up with at that point that I had any kind of worthiness. And that just way of thinking about myself and about the world stayed with me through teenage years. And when I was 14, I hit a low point and was finally like, I've had enough. I can't do it. It actually held a gun to my head, was pulling the trigger, and then something inside snapped, and I just got really angry about the situation. And I knew me feeling that way wasn't right. I was like, no kid should feel this way. I was like, nobody should really feel this way. But I was really upset that I was a kid. I was asking for help, and I wasn't getting help in response. Around my house, it was just, you just didn't speak of it. And one time I'd spoken up to a counselor at school. He got back to my family, and I got in trouble for that. So I learned to keep everything inside. And, I was raised by my dad. He died when I was 15, but up until he did, he and all his drinking buddies that would be around were always telling me, the idea of what a real man is. And it would be things like, you keep it to yourself, you be tough, you suck it up, emotions are for girls, crying's for girls, you want to be a little sissy, all that typical stuff that men are raised with. or tend to be in our culture. And so the one time I did share with someone, I got in trouble for it, got in a lot of trouble for it. And so I learned, okay, pack everything in. And so at this time, sitting there and pulling the trigger, I was like, something's not right. That's not how the world's supposed to be. Got very angry, and I was like, I don't know if there is any better life out there for me than this. But if I find it, I promise, like made this oath to the universe and myself. I was like, if I ever figure out a way out of this, darkness I was living in, I was like, I'm going to shine a light for everybody else coming behind me, anyone. And I wish I could say the next day I woke up and it was like, the epiphany that Ebenezer Scrooge had the next day, and like flowers and sunshine and butterflies everywhere and slinging money in the streets, but still I had all that baggage I'd been dealing with, and I was still, quite young and didn't know what to do, didn't know how to have anything, still believed that we were a product of our environment and all that. Didn't understand the power I actually had. And so I still struggled with it. And all the way through school. And then again, I was going to, I had planned, mom came to me once and asked me to intentionally repeat 12th grade so she could continue to get Social Security money for my dad passing away, because I was supposed to graduate at 17, just because of the way my birthday, fell into the partway through the school year. So she's like, because of your age, you can repeat and I can get an additional year of Social Security. That did a huge hit to what little self-esteem I had left. But also at the same time, just that desire to be accepted and loved and feel valuable, I did it. And not say I was like acing school at that point anyway. I was so withdrawn. I was actually planning on just not even dropping out, just stop going. But anyway, she did that. So I made sure I made it through. Actually had to fight with the school principal to allow me to repeat. He wanted me to go to summer school. He didn't want me back. He hated me. And so continued that year. And then my plan was, I was like, okay, when this year's over on this date, like June 6th, when school's over, the check stops and I'm no longer worthwhile, and that was my mind. And I was like, at least my sister's old enough. She's strong enough. She'll be okay. And that was the plan. And then this brand new teacher, it was his second year, came to me. I only needed half a credit and from his class for the second semester to graduate. And it's about 3 weeks, I think, into the second semester. And he comes up to me and he's like, I need you to stay after class. We need to have a conversation. And of course, all the kids are like, ooh, all this. And I was just like, okay, here we go again. Another teacher going to tell me what a useless, worthless, person I am. And he did, in psychology, we call it a pattern interrupt. And I had no idea what it was then, but he impacted my life huge, and with the simplest little gesture, really. And so everybody leaves, and I'm sitting at my desk and I'm just looking straight down. And I was like, just go ahead, tell me whatever so I can get out of here. And because I had to show up for school enough, otherwise they would completely expel me. So, I was following the guidelines so I could at least get my mom that money. And but I was not engaged at all. And so he comes up and he just drops some papers on my desk in front of me. And he's like, I don't know what you got going on inside right now. I don't know what you have going on in home or what you have going on outside this classroom. He's like, actually, I know nothing about you. He's, but what I do know, and he slaps the papers on the desk, and I hadn't looked at him up to that point. He's like, what I do know is this is not who you are. And he's like, I will not allow you to accept this behavior from yourself anymore. I'm not going to accept it from you. You're not either. You're better than this. And I don't know that I've ever been that uncomfortable in my life as I was right there, because, and he didn't say anything else after that, except for, you can leave whenever you want. And he's like, that's all I got to say for right now. And I darted out the door. I was so nervous, so uncomfortable, because, like I say, all these teachers had just seen my transcripts instead of looking. Because I had gone from honor roll in 6th grade to D's and F's in 7th grade, just like a switch. And no one ever questioned that. Instead, I was just punished. And so that added to my, self-esteem issues. And for once, finally, there's this guy telling me, in just a couple of months before, like the day I was planning on ending my life, and that was the only goal I'd ever set for myself. And he went out of his way, he went above and beyond the rest of the school year to make sure the environment was there for me to graduate. Like, he still made me earn it. He was harsh, like, not harsh, but he was very disciplined about how he approached it. But he understood that there's something going on that cannot be seen from the outside or through grades or anything else. And what it did was just create a pattern interrupt and then planted a seed. Before I knew it, the day I'd been planning for a couple of years at that point to in my life, I'd been waiting for it, visualizing it, had it marked on the calendar, literally like marked out on the calendar. It came and passed, and it never even actually entered my mind. And it was years later before I realized, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to actually be here right now. It's like, what happened? And it took me a while after having that realization. It still took me another couple of years before I actually figured out, oh my God, that conversation had that big of an impact. And so then it woke me up, and I realized, it's like, wow, we don't have to, like, to change somebody's world. We don't have to change the entire world. It's not this big, just, ginormous esoteric happening that only the few elitists in the world can pull off. We don't have to be a Gandhi. We don't have to be a Nelson Mandela. It's like we can be that in our own form. It's like just by a simple 30-second statement, it's got completely shifted the path of my life. And now I have 3 amazing kids. I have a wife I'm crazy about, I adore, and every day I get to do what I love and help other people and fulfill that oath that I made, when I was 14, all because a man, Coach Calderon, came up and made a statement to me. And when I had that realization of how impactful that was, I tracked him down, spent a couple of days trying to track him down, sending this huge email, just like, I know you have no idea who I am. You don't remember anything about me, I'm sure. I was like, but boom, here's the impact you had. And I think about it so many times. And every time I have like a really cool testimonial come from a client or whatever, I'm, wow, this came from that conversation, that little bitty conversation. And just showed me how much impact we can actually have in just a few words, just an embrace, it's not that challenging to do this thing we call life in a beautiful way to help others.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm sitting here listening to all this and I'm resonating so much. And I have a son who's 17, and the first time we saw him battling depression was when he was 13. And it was hard. It was hard to see, especially because I was going through my own stuff and I was mad at myself because I didn't see the signs. And then later on, we moved to Virginia, and he has a coach who I think changed his world, because it took somebody to actually peel back the layers and take the time to say whatever he said to my son to make him change his way of thinking. And I think it's just amazing that one person can change everything. It doesn't matter what your parents say. It doesn't matter what your friends say, but that one person, a teacher who took the time to say, you're better than this, and I don't want to see you do this to yourself anymore. And that's huge. So I'm, oh man.
It's so beautiful, especially like the mindset I had at the time and the rejection I had, the wall I had of distrust towards teachers. And he was still able to get in and plant that seed that he did. And because like I say, the one time I had trusted a teacher, and it wasn't a teacher, it was a counselor. but the one time it did, it got back, and I got in so much trouble for it. And so it's like, don't trust anyone of authority at all. They're not here to help. I was believed it. And so, a lot of, obviously because of my past, youth empowerment is very near and dear to me. So I speak at schools, some in youth organizations and things. And one of the things that I love doing as well with schools is getting teachers to connect back to that. And some of them never even really realize it, but it's you have so much more power than you realize and influence. It's like, out of everybody in the school, I was probably one that hated school and teachers the most at that point. Because when I was younger, school was kind of a safe haven for me to go to. But then different things transpired where I felt betrayed by teachers because I would get in trouble for something that wasn't me. And the reason my high school principal hated me is there was a kid 2 grades ahead of me with the same exact name. And he was always in fights, always in trouble. But I would get called to the office for him and then argue with the principal that it wasn't me. And but finally, it took him 2 years to finally get used to it. But then my face was planted in his mind as a negative response. So like now I understand that with studying psychology and everything. It's like I get it, and I've been able to forgive it. But man, it made my life even worse because I can't even go here now. It's like so constantly I was in this like just insecure, unsafe feeling. And it created all sorts of paranoia issues that I had to deal with as I grew up, to the point where I would like hallucinate and think somebody was watching me all the time. And it was just like, I could never sleep. It was just terrible. And then my plan was after graduation, at one point, like the one time I actually started thinking about the possibility of having a different life, is I was like, the only hope I have is the military. The kids I hung out with, either you were going to make it as a rap star, rock star, or an athlete. And it's like, well, I'm not going to be dunking any basketballs anytime soon. It's like everybody in the NBA has a foot over me. It's like I'm not much bigger than Muggsy Bogues, but it's like I don't have his skills, so I'm not there. I was like, the only hope I felt I had was the military. And my brother had been in the Marine Corps, and several friends went in the military. And I saw like the response that my parents gave my brother whenever he graduated. He was 4.5 years older than me. And I saw the respect that all these other people got. So maybe I can get it that way. And then, but whenever I had to flunk 12th grade, that dream was kind of taken. But because then I'd had vision problems when I was around 13. They started popping up. 12 to 13, I had tunnel vision, and nobody could figure out why. Like constant physical tunnel vision, had no peripheral. But my vision was actually fine. They would run me through all these tests, MRIs, and they couldn't figure it out. And I figured it out years later. It was all because of the stress. That was it. Once I started getting out of the environment, getting in a more positive environment, like I got used to having the peripheral vision. And then in my late 20s, on some one day, it just started coming back. And as I started learning these different techniques and things that I work with clients on now. And so it was beautiful. It showed me like how much power our mental and emotional state actually has over our physical health. But I was all set up to go to the military. I'd actually started going through the steps, and I was like, maybe I can get out. Maybe that'll give me a new life. And then my mom had, asked me about repeating 12th grade. And when I did that, it delayed the process, and they had to, they went deeper into my records, and I was going back through the process again. And of course, they were looking at it, and they were scrutinizing a little bit more, because they're like, why'd you feel like you're lazy? Like, why would we want, it was like, it was a different recruiter. He was drilling me, but all in a loving leadership type way, the way he needed to. But when they dug a little deeper, they found these medical records from when I was 13, and they're like, undiagnosable issue. And one of the main thing they thought it was at the time was a brain tumor. And that's why I was getting the CAT scans and MRIs and everything. And he's like, I can't let you in. He's like, if they would have diagnosed it and we knew what we were dealing with, depending on what it was, we could have worked with it. He said, but the fact that they couldn't figure it out, he's like, I can't do anything. You're too much of a liability. He's like, if you'd already been signed up, if you would have been stepping on the bus, you would have been ours, because it's been not anymore. And I got rejected again. And so that hit. But again, luckily, like I said, we got Coach Calderon gave me that pattern interrupt, and it just because still to this day, when I talk to friends who've been in the military or see movies or whatever, I'm like, I still get like there's some emotion there of like, oh, that was supposed to be me. Like watch something about the Navy SEALs, it's like, oh, that was going to be me, because I was like, I've got to one up my brother to show my parents that I'm worthy, because he was always kind of favored, and being the oldest and only child for so many years, it was a different strategy for him than me. But anyway, I guess when my vision came back though, talk about it. It was literally an eye-opening experience for me. It's like, people talk about it like this metaphor, and it was definitely that. But also, it's like, wow, I could actually see. So then I started having to deal with the fact, like, all of a sudden I became jumpy again, because now I could see things over here I couldn't see before. It's like,
Wow.
again, so used to just this being all dark and nothing there. And then that really set me on the course to understand, like, find out more about human behavior and in epigenetics, and the power of our thinking and our emotional state. And then as I started bringing kids into this world, it was like, okay, I really want to find out, because I don't want to raise them with the negative mindset and programming that's buried deep down in, and that set the course for my life.
Oh my gosh. I have so many things going on in my head right now. So now with your children, how do you discuss this whole topic? Have you shared with them your story from starting at 8 years old? Have you, because for you to even make the conscious decision to not end your life to protect your sister, that's huge at that age. I have no words. That's a huge thing. And so now with your own children, how do you talk about a topic like this? What do you say? Because now the world now is so much different, of course, than when we were raised, because we didn't talk about it. You couldn't talk about it. But now it's almost, they don't feel safe to talk about it, but we're here now to be able to say, I know how you feel. You could talk about it with me, and we become more open. So how do you do that?
And I am one thing. If I ever showed up with any kind of genius at all when it came to parenting, because I've screwed up with them so many times, almost on a daily basis
We
still.
all
But
do.
that's like, there is people are like, oh, this stuff doesn't come with a manual. It's like, yeah, you can't write one for this.
No.
It's like, there's no way. And I've started a parenting book a few times, but then all of a sudden the very next day there'll be something with the kids. I'm like, okay, maybe I should throw that idea out. But it's like one day it'll come. But the best thing I ever did with any of them was and I don't know, I must have hit my head or something, because there's been times I regretted saying this, of course, but and parents will totally understand. But I gave them permission from day one. As soon as I knew they could understand what I was saying, I was like, you're always allowed to ask me why. I was like, if I tell you to do anything, you have full permission. I don't care what's going on. I was like, you ask why. And if I can't give you a better reason than because I say so or something like that, you have my permission. You don't have to do it. I was like, and you can remind me of this. And because it was holding me accountable, because I was, as I thought about parenting, I read parenting books and everything. When I found out, my first child was going to be born, I kept realizing, and there's actually a book that I think was entitled "Because I Said So," and it's by Ken somebody. I can't remember his last name, but he was the all-time biggest winner on Jeopardy. And I was reading it, and it's a pretty good book. It's comical, and he just talks about how different things we say and do get handed down to us when we're a kid, and we don't even question it when we become adults. And so reading that just kind of sparked in me more of that. I was like, wow, how many things am I saying and doing that I have no idea about? And it's like, I don't want to. And then as kids came in, I was like, I really don't want to raise them off the same programming I was raised with, because I know where that got me, and I don't want that for mine. The day my oldest turned 8, I had a lot of emotion I had to deal with, a lot of anxiety, because it's like, wow, I remember what I felt like at that age. Luckily, he was completely on the other end of the spectrum, but which was very calming for me. But there was, when I woke up on his 8th birthday, I was like, whoo. I had to go do some work on myself, and just to relax and get out of that energy, and just have faith that it was going to be all right. But anyway, yeah, it was that, always, and they still don't talk as much as I want. Definitely my oldest, he keeps a lot to himself. There's a lot of similarities between he and that I was at that age. But like I say, his emotional strength and mental state is so much better than mine. He's the most perseverant, headstrong kid I've ever met. And when he sets his mind to any goal. But yeah, it was holding that open, keeping that space. I'm like, at any point you're allowed to. And I even, with Jaden, my oldest, I actually even wrote it down, like gave him a note. I was like, you keep this with you. And I was like, even if I'm angry, I was like, and you say it, you ask why, I was like, and I can't give you a reason, and I get mad about you asking, I was like, you hand me this note to remind me. But I did say, there will be times that I don't have the time to explain right in that moment. I'm going to need you to trust me. But in those times, I will tell you that. And as soon as things calm down, an hour later or a day later, I was like, we will have that conversation, and I'll explain it to you. And I held myself accountable for that. Because like I say, I knew that I was not ready to be a parent. Yeah. And that the programming and modeling I had set up for parenting, especially being a dad, I was like, I do not want to be that. So, and when I work with clients on like goal setting, so many of us don't know what we want. It's really sad. You ask somebody, well, what do you want in life? What are you aiming for? I have no idea. It's like everybody says the cookie cutter, the house, the 2.3 kids or whatever it is, and the picket fence and all that. It's been passed down since, television or beyond. And, but when you get to know, what do you actually want, not what everybody told you you're supposed to want, and we don't know. So what I did then is like, I don't know how to be a parent. I know I want to be a good one, but I don't really know what that looks like. But I was like, I do know what I don't want to be. And I was like, so I have a model for that. And it's like, I looked there, and it's like, okay, what's the opposite of this? Turn around, and it's like, okay, that at least kind of gets me in the direction. And I was like, I'll adjust course then. And then, like I said, just started studying some parenting books and looking for people I respected in that aspect. And I ran across somewhere, I think it was Zig Ziglar or Brian Tracy or Jim Rohn, one of those guys, one of the early personal development people, and they had told a story about the Kennedy family and how so many of the Kennedy kids grew up to be these awesome people, very successful, very happy, very just all around seem healthy people, mentally, physically, all the way around. And they were talking about it, and they all said basically the same thing. They're like, at dinner every night, our parents basically had a spotlight, and it's each one of you gets your opportunity to speak, talk about whatever you want to talk about, and the rest of the family is going to hear you out. You can talk for a minute, you can talk for 10 if you need it, but you say your piece. And every conversation, there was no, like, this is an adult conversation, you guys just sit there and shut up. It was that open floor. It's like, you're all valuable here. You all have something to add. You all deserve to be heard. And he's like, and whenever we needed to express something, we were allowed to. Wow, okay, I'm going to stick with that because the Kennedy bloodline seems to be doing better than the Brooks bloodline that I've never been around. So I was able to put my ego aside and kind of hold that intention. And like I said, I mean, I screwed up. I made mistakes. There were times I because I said so, or that I wish, man, I'd love to go back to that time where I gave him that permission and slapped myself. But,
Right.
but I have seen, and it has been, there's been a lot more beauty of it than there has been frustration on my end as a parent. And yeah, I've seen them like they're totally fine with expressing exactly who they are, from how they behave. Like they don't get wrapped up in the peer pressure at school. We constantly get responses from the teachers and the principal at their school of like, it doesn't matter what's going on in class, who's acting up. If everybody's acting up, then like Jaden is just sitting there strong and just shaking it off. And if anything, he's just kind of annoyed that he's being interrupted from whatever he's focusing on. And it's like, he never gets pulled into stuff. And it's like, it's showing me, it's like, okay, they're staying true to the voice they hear inside. It's like, if that's the only thing I do right as a parent, it's like, I can be good with that. Cause they're doing better than I was. And, they'll continue to do better with, going forward and any generation behind them, hopefully. So
that's amazing. Well, you're doing something right. So let's, we all,
there had to be one thing. The odds were there.
That's hard. This parenting, there is no book. You cannot write a book because every kid's different, every situation. It's like it never ends. So it's, yeah, you're doing good.
Then I added a stepson into the mix, and I was like, man, I thought parenting was challenging. Wow, I always had the highest respect for step parents. Like, wow, that's huge. Step in and raise another person's child.
Yeah.
Be good with it. And then I got into it and I was like, whew, man, there should be monuments built. It's like, there's challenge, it really makes you realize how much of a natural connection there is to your kids. And you understand, exactly why I didn't throw that one out the window. It's like, there really is a natural link there. It's like, it really makes you step up and understand and see how we automatically just look at, some people different, and really made me, step in. And, my wife will put me in check. She's my accountability partner for everything. And she's a coach like I am. So it's not fun for either one of us to be in this relationship sometimes, because we don't take excuses and victim mentality. It's like, it's nope. Are you being at cause right now? No, and I don't want to be. So we've helped each other through that. But luckily, when we got together, we both took a year off from basically doing anything. We just focused on focusing on the kids and blending the families together. And it wasn't the smartest thing financially, but in the long run, actually it was, because it's just to see where the three of them are at now with each other. I mean, there were some rough patches. There were tears. There were angry words. There was all kinds of stuff. There was grudges being held. People were staking out tribes of their own and like staking claims. And but now, like the three of them constantly, it's my oldest is 12, and then it's 9 and 8 are the other two. So he's getting into things that they're not into. So he has his independent time where he's hanging out with me, but they still get together. A couple days a week they'll be just playing and chasing around. The three of them all day get into something. So it's been really beautiful watching all of that come into existence. So
that's wonderful.
But yeah, it's definitely got to think. I tell them all the time, like, wait until you're 30 to have kids or get married. Like, come on. So
I tell it, yeah. My daughter's 19, and she's, she keeps saying, "Well, you had us when you were 25." I said, times are different. Now there's no rush. There is no rush. You need to figure out your life first. But so I'm praying that she waits, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's we played the Robert Kiyosaki, or Rich Dad Poor Dad game, Cash Flow, and they have a kids version, but they have an adult version, and the adult version is made. Actually, both of them are really good, but the kids, after they felt they mastered the kids version, they asked to play the adult version with us, and amazingly, they actually they loved it way more than I ever expected. Like once they understood the rules, because it was complicating for us to figure out. I was like, wow, I guess we won't be teaching finances anytime soon. But finally, it is a great teaching point, gets you thinking different. But it's funny, there's an option on the adult version to land on a space and you get a baby in your life and your expenses go through the roof, right? And they cap it out at 3. You're not allowed to get more than 3. But my 12-year-old started going, no, I don't want any of those things. And he'd keep pointing. He's like visualizing everywhere else. And every time he would get one, like, oh, and they all went from, I don't want any of those things. So sometimes it's a joke. We're like, hey, those things, come here. But he's like, man, I was saving up for a Lamborghini and I got one of those things. So think about that,
Exactly.
moving forward when, you're dating and all that, just remember this moment.
Exactly.
I say it's like my greatest memories have you guys involved. So just think, but that very moment when you landed on that tile, because it's so much more than that. But,
it sure is.
I'm hoping Robert Kiyosaki through his board game is teaching my kids about sex education and everything, or at least the whole principle of waiting and all of that. I've done the parenting teaching part, but
I think it will. I think he'll remember that.
So every time they're like, "Fam, can we play a game?" Yeah, here, you want to play this?
Exactly. Let's play this once a month so it can keep instilling in your mind. Oh my gosh. So really quick, tell us about your Empowerment Academy. That is it's powerful.
So we do coaching outside of that, but what Brooks Empowerment Academy is, and actually we've been, it's becoming more of the focus with everything going on with coronavirus and, everybody being so stressed out about that and everything with just the way the world's shifting and everybody's cooped up inside. We kept getting, and we had been getting more and more people reaching out to us, mostly like coaches and therapists and counselors and things. But now, with so many other people thinking about coming in the coaching space or whatever, the demand's gone up. And what we do is, we teach, because we're certified to certify others in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Anyone who has ever heard of Tony Robbins, everything he used to do, or still does actually, really is based out of what he learned in training in NLP. And it's just, NLP started out as, being able to model success and understand that if one person is successful, we all can be. We just need the recipe, and we get it by modeling them. But then they start discovering, there's a different way of mindset. There's, a different way to handle emotions. There's, all these different things, and it just kept growing to where it was learning, language and the difference in communication and all of this. So we have a certification program where we certify anyone in that, but it just happens to be the group we have right now is all coaches. Then there are some techniques that were spawned out of NLP that went to a whole new level and treats things like phobia, PTSD, and all these different traumas. I've helped people release anaphylactic allergies simply through these mental and emotional release techniques. And so we have that course as well that we train coaches who just want to take it to another level and be able to eliminate, because everybody, we all have at some level we have some self-sabotage. The person who's making $30,000 a year is only holding themselves back to that. It's not that they want to make that. It's just there's something holding them back from making $30,000 a month. It's not in their vision for themselves that they can have it. Either they don't believe they're worthy of it, or they just can't grasp the idea of even having that. Or some people are afraid to get it because of, oh man, taxes go up, or fake friends, and all that stuff. And even high level investors and all this. It's like we all have a lid that we've put on ourselves, some kind of limiting belief. Just sadly, most of the population that lid is set very tight and very low, and like people talk about different health issues and things like obesity. It's like, oh, everybody in my family is just this way. And it's like, oh, it's genetics. And it's like, well, it's not actually genetics how you think it is. It's a genetic way of thinking that you got from language like that of just everybody in my family has this issue. And that really came to my mind. I grew up with a friend of mine who was adopted in a family of 5, and she had the exact same health issues as her adopted parents because she adored them, still does to this day. The way she looks at it, they saved her life. Mm-hmm. Yet there's no genetic makeup similar. She's not related at all. And that kind of stuck with me. So as my vision issue and stuff were fixed, I started really looking at and understanding all of that. And I don't know what all is possible with it, but the way I look at it, it's like, well, whatever's possible is what the person believes is possible. Because after some of the things I've seen and experienced, like, I really don't know if there's a limit. I have no idea. And the most erudite scientists and doctors on the planet can't tell us what our potential really is. So it's like, if they don't know, I definitely don't know. So it's not on me to put limits on someone else. Yeah. And so it's all that. It's being able to release the emotional baggage that's packed inside us that holds us, in those fear type states or limiting beliefs, but also the thought patterns that run, because they say it's up to 70,000 thoughts a day, we think now, but all that's going on unconsciously. If we were thinking it consciously, we'd go insane. Or mind, just think of that. It's like we can't. Yeah. So our unconscious mind is handling 4 million bits of information per second. Our conscious mind, which is the mind that you and I are using to have this conversation, things like that, to think about what we're having for dinner, what kind of car we want to buy, all of that. That's all conscious thought. That is only 126 bits. So there's 4 million bits going on at any given time, minus the 126 minuscule little bits that we have no idea. All right. So that's how, you can send 100 people to a movie and they all have a different review of it, a different experience. And the reason for that is because, the 4 million bits is basically the same for everybody. What's there? The 126 is what we have control over, and that's what we focus on. That's what we pick up on and manifest into our life. So I wasn't able to do this math, but I was able to track down people who were, because the math is not quite my strong suit. That if you take a bit of information and say 1 drop of water is 1 bit of information, that 4 million bits comes out to like 114 gallons of water. So every single second, 114 gallons of water. That 126 drops of water is just over a teaspoon, like 1.14 teaspoons or something like that. It was 1.6, something like that. But anyway, it's not much at all. So we have all this going on, this 4 million drops every single second, these 100 and something gallons, but we can only see a teaspoon of it at a time. The beauty of it is we can reprogram what teaspoon we choose to get out of it. And if we don't like it, we can actually dump it out. We can get it again. It just takes, understanding how the unconscious mind works and being able to go in and reprogram it. And it actually happens really fast. There's a quote. This is, 2 different quotes I absolutely love. And one is, results don't take time. They take courage. And then there's another one that says, change happens in an instant. People are like, oh, it took me 10 years to quit smoking or change my diet. And I said, well, no, Dan, it just took you 10 years to finally get sick of how you're doing it, to finally step into that courage, that belief that you could, and take ownership of it. And the beautiful thing is, with like these techniques that we teach the coaches and things, it helps people get there in an instant. They say it takes 21 days to install a new habit, 21 to 30 days. Well, that's with baggage in the way. If we actually release the baggage, change the belief, the habit can actually be installed almost instantly. And it's very fascinating to see it and experience it. I geek out on it every time I work with a client on it. It's fantastic. And like mentors of mine all the time, I'm like, you've got to take a break from all this and have some fun time. I'm like, I'm doing what I love. Like, this is fun. Like, and I'm like, get a different hobby. I'm like, I don't really know what that is anymore. But because it just fascinates me. And if I have any superpower in the world, it is it's being able to see possibility in others that they can't always see in themselves, and just hold on to that. Because let's say no one saw possibility in me for a very long time, and I didn't even see it in myself. And when Coach Calderon showed up, like I say, he planted a seed. It took a while to grow fully, and it's still growing. But at least now I'm aware of it and I nourish it. But I heard Les Brown say, one of my all-time favorite speakers, and he said, sometimes you have to believe in someone else's belief in you until your belief shows up. And that's exactly what Coach Calderon did for me, or gave me the opportunity to do. And the beautiful thing with that was, say, he actually used the technique we teach in NLP, which is a pattern interrupt and then plant the seed. So even the fact I didn't believe in his belief in me, because he had a technique, I didn't need to, and he was still able to get the information in. And that's, actually pattern interrupts are so powerful. It's one of the main techniques I teach to anyone I work with, even just one-on-one coaching clients, because my goal with any client is to coach myself out of a job. I'm like, I don't want you needing me for 6 months or a year or any of that. It's like, I want you to be able to move on and never need me again. Otherwise, we haven't done my job here, And so I teach them even, all the techniques that they can do on themselves. It's
amazing.
Because I want everybody to have this. So I teach it, my kids, their friends, when they have sleepovers, we're doing board breaks. We do miniature seminars. It's like we get down. So I don't always let parents know until after it's over. Sometimes I do. It depends on the parent, but some of them freak out because my kids want to walk on fire, do the fire walks, and I've done one, but I was like, man, we will when you get there. But right now we do what we call a fire stomp, and I'll just light some leaves on fire on a concrete pad, and they just like stomp it out, and they think it's awesome. But it's we're a different kind of house here. Our neighbors probably think we're quacks.
It's just everybody parents differently. We shouldn't be judged. Our kids are going to turn out just fine.
I tell all my clients and students, it's like, hey, anything that any task we give you, any exercise, any technique I run you through, I've tried it on myself first, then my wife, and then our kids. And then we wait a couple of weeks, and if nobody starts having any little twitches or anything, we're good to go. And then we take it out in the world. So don't worry. Yeah. It's like, we're all the guinea pigs here. And then it's like, if something goes wrong, I've got them right here. I can watch them, and then I can figure out how to fix it. So don't worry. Tried and true method. So, yeah.
That's funny. So where can people find you?
Of course, I'm on, all the social media outlets. We have brooksempowermentacademy.com. Which we're actually going through right now, revamping that and kind of dressing it up, but it's still there, it's still active. And then I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and all of those can be found, / Kip Brooks Coaching. Reach out to me, any questions anybody has, anything. I say I love this stuff, and always open to share as much as I can, answer any questions I can. And if I don't have it, I can direct you where to go. And whether someone chooses to work with me or not, it's, or I even choose to work with them, it's like I keep a very good network too of people with similar techniques who are, very good and integrity. And also I wanted to offer, we have a course that we just charge for, but in the times now, and also as a gratitude gift to you for having me on, wanted to gift it. It's a 30-day program of 30 days to empowered positive thinking. I'll email you whenever we get off this. My wife was creating the link for it, actually. She's probably done with it now. But I'll email it to you as soon as we get off, so you can send that out to all your listeners. It really helps. It helps with having better communication with ourselves, and like I said, more of a positive outlook on the world and ourselves. But also it helps with being able to communicate with others, and it's awesome. We've gotten a lot of really great feedback from it. and
That's wonderful.
it's based off of some of the stuff that like we've run ourselves through it. Again, we tested on us first, but it's something that wasn't really taught publicly without like going all the way through like NLP and all this stuff. And it's like, it's so simple, but the teachings are beautiful. So let's take that part out of it and offer it out to everybody. And yeah, it's fantastic. So I'll get you that email this afternoon.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Well, gosh, Kip, I'm so honored to have you on here. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for
Absolutely.
reaching out. And I'm grateful to our higher power for keeping you here. This is your calling. I can see it. I can see your passion. I know you guys can't see his face, but it just brightens up every time he speaks about it. So I can tell that this is what he loves to do. So thank you so much for doing what you do.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me. My mom always told me I had a face for radio, and now it's podcast. But yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for what you're doing with your mission and the podcast and everything else. It's beautiful. I'd love to see how many people are creating ripples in this water that so many people used to ignore.
Yes.
Yeah, it's awesome. I can't wait for the shift that's coming.
Yes.
So
yes.
But
Thank you
so
much.
Absolutely.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Thank you for listening to the Truths We Hide podcast, created by A Wild Ride Called Life. To find out more about our mission, visit www.awildridecalledlife.com.